Don't attach to anything, the Buddhist secret of happiness. In a world that constantly tells us to hold on, to accumulate, to chase after more, the teachings of Buddhism whisper an opposite truth. The path to real happiness is not in acquiring, but in letting go. The essence of Buddhist wisdom points to detachment, not in the sense of neglecting life, but in freeing the heart from chains that create suffering. To not attach does not mean to reject love, relationships, or experiences, but to embrace them without clinging. Attachment is the root of craving, and craving is the root of suffering, as the Buddha taught. When we attach to things, people, or outcomes, we give them the power to control our peace of mind. We live in fear of losing what we cling to, and in constant anxiety that it may not meet our expectations. The Buddhist secret of happiness lies in reversing this condition. It is about being present in every moment without the desperate need to grasp, to own, or to demand permanence. Life, by its very nature, is impermanent. Everything arises and passes away: relationships, health, possessions, emotions, even the body we live in. Recognizing this impermanence is not meant to sadden us, but to liberate us. It allows us to appreciate deeply what is here now without being crushed when it changes tomorrow. In the following chapters, we will explore in depth how detachment works as a practice, not merely as an idea. We will see why attachments create suffering, how Buddhist masters trained the mind to release them, and how ordinary people today can apply these teachings to live with greater joy and freedom. Each topic will unfold like a step in the journey, revealing practical insights rooted in ancient wisdom, but profoundly relevant to the modern world. Let us begin with the first topic, which explores the fundamental truth that attachment is the seed of suffering, and detachment is the soil where happiness blossoms. Attachment as the root of suffering. From the earliest Buddhist scriptures, the Buddha identified attachment as the central cause of human suffering. The second noble truth states clearly that suffering arises from craving. Tanha, the thirst that never ends. We desire pleasure, recognition, security, love, material wealth, and we cling tightly to these desires. When they are not fulfilled, we suffer. When they are fulfilled, we suffer still, because we fear losing them. This endless cycle becomes the wheel of samsara, where attachment ties us again and again to dissatisfaction. Think for a moment about a common example, a relationship. When two people fall in love, their joy is pure and expansive at first. But as time passes, attachment creeps in. One begins to fear losing the other, to expect certain behaviors, to demand constant reassurance. The love that could have been free and liberating becomes burdened by conditions. If the partner changes, withdraws, or eventually leaves, the pain can feel unbearable. Not because of love itself, but because of the attachment woven into it. The same happens with material possessions. Owning a new house, car, or even a simple device can bring joy, but the joy quickly transforms into worry. Worry about maintenance, loss, theft, or depreciation. Instead of serving us, our possessions begin to own us. Our happiness is chained to external conditions we cannot control. Buddhism offers a radical shift in perspective. What if we enjoyed without clinging, loved without grasping, lived without demanding permanence? What if we could let life flow naturally, knowing that everything is impermanent? This shift is not easy, it goes against instinct, but it is the very doorway to liberation. By training the mind to see the impermanence of all things, we loosen the grip of attachment. We begin to realize that clinging is optional. Meditation practices, such as mindfulness of breath or contemplation of impermanence, are designed to train this awareness. When one sits quietly and observes the rise and fall of each breath, one experiences directly the truth of impermanence. The inhale comes, the exhale follows, and neither can be held forever. Trying to hold the breath would cause suffering. Letting it flow naturally brings peace. The same applies to every aspect of life. The Buddhist path is not about suppressing desire, but transforming the relationship with it. It teaches us to appreciate without clutching, to hold gently instead of tightly. In this way, happiness becomes possible, not as a fleeting state dependent on external objects, but as an inner stability that remains regardless of change. This teaching is especially powerful in the modern age, where consumer culture thrives on attachment. Advertisements fuel craving by convincing us that happiness depends on buying the next product, achieving the next status, or securing the next comfort. Yet no matter how much is acquired, the hunger remains. The wheel keeps spinning. True freedom is found not in feeding the hunger endlessly, but in stepping off the wheel altogether. Detachment, then, is not a cold rejection of life. It is the opposite. It is the key to truly living. When one no longer clings, one can love more freely, laugh more deeply, and walk more lightly. One can look at a flower and admire its beauty without needing it to last forever. One can enjoy friendship without demanding it to be permanent. One can walk through life without carrying the heavy burden of expectation. To let go is to breathe. To release attachment is to rediscover life as it is, in its raw beauty, without distortion. And in this freedom, happiness arises naturally. If this message resonates with you, and if you want to continue this journey into the depths of Buddhist wisdom, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Each lesson we explore is not just knowledge, but a practice that can transform your daily life. Join us in walking the path of freedom and peace, the practice of letting go. The practice of letting go is not a single act accomplished once and for all, but a lifelong discipline, a journey of the heart and mind toward liberation. It is a gentle but relentless training that shapes how we see, how we respond, and how we inhabit the world. To let go is to cultivate the art of non-clinging in every moment of life, whether in relationships, possessions, thoughts, or even in the idea of self. It is not about running away from the world, but about walking through it freely, unburdened by the chains that normally bind us. To understand the practice of letting go, we must first accept that life is impermanent and that everything we hold on to will eventually change, fade, or disappear. Nothing we know, no matter how precious, can escape the universal law of impermanence. Yet this truth, instead of depressing us, can set us free. When we see the transient nature of all things, we realize that clinging is futile, like trying to hold on to water in our hands. The tighter we grasp, the faster it slips away. Freedom lies in opening the hand and allowing the water to flow naturally, refreshing us without the need to possess it. In Buddhist monasteries, monks and nuns dedicate themselves to this discipline through countless small practices. They eat their meals mindfully, aware that each bite is fleeting. They walk slowly, aware that each step is unrepeatable. They meditate on the rising and passing of the breath, aware that life itself is nothing but a series of moments, each arising and dissolving. These practices are not limited to monks, however. Ordinary people, living in the midst of jobs, families, and responsibilities, can also learn to practice letting go. It begins with awareness. When you feel anger rising, you notice it. Here is anger. When you feel the desire to control another person, you notice it. Here is craving. The noticing itself creates space, and in that space, you are no longer trapped. You can choose not to act from clinging, not to be enslaved by it. Letting go is not indifference. This is a common misunderstanding. To let go is not to stop caring. In fact, it is to care more deeply, without the selfishness of possession. When you hold a flower without uprooting it, you allow it to live, to bloom, and eventually to wither in its own time. When you let go in relationships, you do not love less. You love more purely, without the demands and conditions that suffocate love. It is only attachment that turns love into bondage. Letting go transforms it into freedom. In the same way, letting go of possessions does not mean abandoning life or living in poverty. It means no longer being owned by what you own. You may still enjoy a home, a car, or a beautiful object, but your happiness is not tied to them. If they vanish tomorrow, you will still remain whole. There is an inner courage required to practice letting go, for it asks us to face the fear that arises when we loosen our grip. Humans cling because they fear emptiness, they fear loss, they fear the unknown. Yet what Buddhism teaches is that emptiness is not something to fear, but the very nature of reality. Shunyata, the openness in which all things arise and pass. When we learn to rest in this openness, we discover a peace that cannot be shaken. The fear of losing dissolves because we realize that there is nothing permanent to lose and nothing permanent to gain. The heart becomes steady like a mountain, unshaken by passing storms. Meditation is one of the central methods for training in this art. As you sit, thoughts will inevitably come. Memories, desires, worries, plans. The practice is not to suppress them, but to let them go. You notice a thought, you label it gently, thinking, and then you return to the breath. Over and over you release the thought without judgment, without clinging. At first the mind resists. It wants to follow every thought, to cling to it, to build stories. But gradually, through patience, the habit of clinging weakens. You begin to experience moments of spaciousness where thoughts pass like clouds in the sky, leaving the sky itself untouched. In this spaciousness there is freedom. The thoughts are still there, but they no longer imprison you. The same practice applies in daily life. Imagine you are waiting in traffic and frustration rises. Instead of feeding the frustration, you notice it, breathe, and let it go. You cannot control the traffic, but you can free yourself from being controlled by your reaction. Or imagine you are engaged in an argument, and the urge to prove yourself right arises. Instead of clinging to being right, you can step back, breathe, and release the need to win. In that moment, peace enters, and the situation changes. This is how letting go works. It transforms ordinary life into a path of liberation. One of the greatest obstacles to letting go is the attachment to identity. We cling not only to external things, but to the idea of who we are, our name, our role, our reputation, our story. We say, "I am this kind of person," and then we defend that image fiercely. When someone challenges it, we feel attacked, and we suffer. Buddhism invites us to see that the self is also impermanent, a collection of changing processes, not a fixed entity. Thoughts, emotions, memories, and roles come and go, but none of them define a permanent self. When we loosen our grip on identity, we experience a new freedom. We can adapt, change, and flow with life instead of being trapped by a rigid story about who we must be. This does not mean losing all sense of self, but realizing that the self is fluid, like a river, not solid like a rock. To let go of the rigid self is to return to the living flow of reality. There is a beautiful paradox here. By letting go, you gain. You gain peace, clarity, and resilience. You gain the ability to be present in the moment. You gain the freedom to love without fear. You gain happiness that is not dependent on external circumstances. All the things people chase in the world, wealth, power, recognition, are pursued because people believe they will bring happiness. Yet those very pursuits often create suffering. The Buddhist secret is that happiness is already here, waiting to be discovered in the act of letting go. When the heart releases its clinging, joy arises naturally, like a spring bubbling from the earth. You do not need to force it or chase it. It is the natural state of a free mind. This practice also transforms how we see death. For many, the ultimate attachment is to life itself, and thus death is feared above all. But when you train in letting go, you realize that death is simply another change in the endless flow of impermanence. The body will die, the mind will dissolve, but clinging is not required. By practicing letting go in small things, we prepare for the great letting go at the end. For the practitioner, death is not a terrifying end, but a continuation of the natural process. This does not mean we seek death, but that we approach it with peace when it comes. To die without clinging is the ultimate freedom. Even in grief, the practice of letting go reveals its power. When we lose someone we love, the pain is deep. Buddhism does not deny this pain, it embraces it with compassion. But it also shows that much of the suffering comes from clinging to what cannot return. By gently releasing, by honoring impermanence, we can grieve without being destroyed. We can carry love in our heart without being chained by longing. We can celebrate the life of the one who has passed, knowing that everything is transient and that this is the nature of existence. Letting go does not erase love, it purifies it. The practice of letting go requires patience. The habits of clinging are deeply ingrained, reinforced by culture, family, and personal history. It cannot be undone overnight. Sometimes we let go a little and then cling again. This is natural. The key is persistence. Every moment provides an opportunity to practice. Each time you notice yourself clinging and release it, no matter how small, you strengthen the path of freedom. Over time, these small acts of letting go accumulate, transforming your mind and your life. It is like gradually removing stones from a backpack you have carried for years. At first, the difference is small, but eventually you realize you are walking lightly, almost floating. The burden has disappeared. There are also practices of generosity that embody letting go. When you give freely, whether it is time, money, attention, or kindness, you practice releasing attachment. You release the desire to keep everything for yourself. You open the hand, and in opening, you discover abundance. Generosity is a direct path to joy because it breaks the chain of clinging. It teaches the heart to trust that letting go does not lead to loss but to fullness. In many Buddhist cultures, giving alms to monks is a daily practice, reminding people that happiness lies not in holding on, but in giving away. But you do not need to live in a monastery to practice this. Every act of kindness in daily life is an act of letting go, a step on the path of liberation. The world will always give us opportunities to cling, opportunities for desire, for anger, for pride, for control. But each of these opportunities is also an invitation to practice letting go. Every challenge is a teacher. When someone insults you, it is an opportunity to let go of pride. When you face loss, it is an opportunity to let go of possession. When plans collapse, it is an opportunity to let go of control. Life itself becomes the perfect monastery, the perfect training ground for freedom. The practice of letting go does not remove us from life, but immerses us more deeply in it, without fear, without bondage. Ultimately, letting go is not something to be achieved, but a way of being. It is a shift in the heart from grasping to openness, from fear to trust, from bondage to freedom. It is the very essence of the Buddhist secret of happiness. To walk this path is to discover a joy that cannot be taken away, because it does not depend on anything external. It arises from within, from the simple, profound act of releasing the hand, of clinging. If you wish to continue exploring these timeless teachings and want to nurture this practice in your own life, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Each lesson is a step toward freedom, each reflection a seed of peace. Walk with us on this path, and together let us rediscover the happiness that comes from letting go. Freedom beyond desire. The human heart has been conditioned through centuries to believe that happiness lies in the fulfillment of desire. We are taught from childhood to want, to seek, to chase after objects, achievements, relationships, and pleasures. The entire structure of modern society is built on the idea that desire is the engine of life and that its fulfillment is the reward. Yet, Buddhism turns this idea upside down. Instead of glorifying desire, it reveals how desire itself keeps us bound to dissatisfaction. The secret is not in fulfilling every craving, but in transcending desire altogether, in stepping into a freedom that is not conditioned by what we get or lose. This freedom beyond desire is the heart of liberation, and it is here that the Buddhist secret of happiness becomes most radiant. Desire operates like a flame that is never satisfied. Each time it consumes fuel, it demands more. If you get what you want, immediately a new want arises. If you do not get it, you suffer. Desire whispers constantly, if only I had this, if only I reached that, if only this person loved me, if only the world were different. The mind runs endlessly in circles, always projecting happiness into the future, never resting in the present. In this way, desire robs us of life itself. It keeps us busy, chasing shadows, while the light of reality is right here in front of us. The Buddha saw this clearly and taught that the end of suffering comes not through the satisfaction of desire, but through its cessation. To transcend desire does not mean to destroy all motivation or to live without joy. It means to see desire for what it is, a temporary wave that rises and falls in the mind. When you see it clearly, without being seduced by it, you are no longer enslaved. The wave comes, but you are the ocean. The craving arises, but you are not compelled to follow it. In this freedom, you discover a happiness that is deeper than any pleasure desire can bring, because it does not depend on conditions. It is a happiness born of release. Consider the simple act of eating. If you eat with desire, you are never satisfied. You finish one meal already thinking of the next. You crave more salt, more sugar, more stimulation. But if you eat with mindfulness, without clinging, you taste each bite fully, and there is no need for more. The meal becomes complete in itself, not because it was extraordinary, but because you were free of craving. The same principle applies to every aspect of life. When you walk without desire to be elsewhere, each step is complete. When you breathe without craving for the next moment, each breath is complete. This completeness is freedom beyond desire. Many people fear that transcending desire means losing passion, creativity, or the will to live, but the truth is the opposite. When you are not bound by craving, you become free to act from wisdom and compassion rather than from hunger. Desire narrows vision, making us see only what we want. Freedom beyond desire opens vision, allowing us to see what truly is. This clarity leads to deeper creativity, greater compassion, and more authentic living. A painter free of desire does not paint to be famous, but because painting itself is joy. A leader free of craving does not act for power, but for the well-being of others. A lover free of attachment does not cling to control, but loves freely. Far from draining life of meaning, freedom beyond desire fills it with true meaning. In meditation, practitioners directly confront desire. Sitting still, the body may crave movement, the mind may crave entertainment, the heart may crave comfort. But instead of feeding these cravings, the meditator watches them. Here is thirst, here is restlessness, here is longing. Each is observed without judgment, without following. Slowly, the grip of desire loosens. One begins to taste a peace deeper than satisfaction, the peace of not needing anything to be different. This is not suppression, but liberation. The craving loses its power because you see it clearly and let it pass. Like clouds drifting through the sky, they come and go, but the sky remains vast and clear. This freedom also transforms our relationship with pleasure. Buddhism does not condemn pleasure itself. The danger lies not in pleasure but in clinging to it, in making it the condition of happiness. When you are attached to pleasure, you suffer when it ends. But when you are free beyond desire, you can enjoy pleasure without being bound by it. You can taste a fruit, admire a sunset, or listen to music fully, knowing it is impermanent. When it ends, you let it go with gratitude rather than with sorrow. In this way, freedom beyond desire actually deepens enjoyment, because it is not poisoned by fear of loss. In relationships, freedom beyond desire is transformative. Most suffering in love arises from craving, wanting the other to fulfill our needs, to behave as we expect, to stay forever. This clinging creates conflict and disappointment. But when we free ourselves from desire, we can love without chains. We can give without demanding in return, appreciate without controlling, embrace without fear. Such love is rare, but it is the love that liberates. It is not blind passion, but awakened compassion. It sees the other as they are, not as an object of desire, and thus allows true intimacy. Freedom beyond desire also liberates us from the endless pursuit of external success. Society tells us that happiness lies in money, status, recognition, but each achievement only breeds new cravings. When success leads to the hunger for more, this treadmill has no end. To step off it requires courage, the courage to see that real happiness is not found outside, but within. The person free of desire can still work, create, and contribute to the world, but without the desperate hunger for recognition. They act from peace, not from need, and because they are not enslaved by outcomes, their actions are more effective, more authentic, more aligned with truth. One of the greatest desires we cling to is the desire for certainty. We want life to go according to our plans, the future to unfold as we imagine, but life is unpredictable, and this craving for certainty breeds constant anxiety. Freedom beyond desire means releasing the need to control the uncontrollable. It means trusting the flow of life, adapting moment by moment. In this trust, anxiety dissolves. You live in the unknown, but you live freely. This does not mean recklessness. It means wisdom, the wisdom to know what you can change and what you must accept. Even the desire for enlightenment can become a trap. Many practitioners cling to the idea of awakening as something to be achieved, a prize to be won. This desire itself becomes an obstacle. The Buddha taught that enlightenment is not gained by striving, but revealed by letting go. When you stop grasping even for awakening, the truth shines through naturally. It is like trying to calm water. The more you stir, the more it ripples. When you let go, the water becomes still, and its clarity is revealed. The practice of moving beyond desire requires not only meditation, but also wisdom in daily living. It means watching the mind and gently loosening its grip whenever it clings. It means practicing gratitude for what is, instead of yearning for what is not. It means simplifying life, reducing unnecessary cravings, and cultivating contentment. Contentment is the fragrance of freedom. When you are content, you are rich, no matter how much or how little you have. Without contentment, even the wealthiest person is poor, endlessly chasing more. In the deepest sense, freedom beyond desire is freedom from the illusion of separation. Desire arises because we feel incomplete, as though something outside can complete us. But when we see through this illusion, we realize that we are already whole. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be added. The craving dissolves because the truth of completeness shines through. This realization is the essence of nirvana, the blowing out of the flame of craving, the peace that surpasses understanding. The path to this freedom is gradual, but every step brings more lightness. Each desire you release is like a chain removed. Each craving you see clearly and let pass is like a door opening. Over time, you find yourself walking in a new world, not because the world has changed, but because you have. You no longer run after shadows. You rest in reality. You no longer depend on possessions, relationships, or achievements for happiness. You enjoy them, yes, but your joy is not chained to them. This independence is the greatest wealth, the true treasure of life. Freedom beyond desire does not mean withdrawing from the world or becoming passive. On the contrary, it allows you to engage more fully. You can work, love, create, and serve with greater energy because you are no longer drained by craving. You act not out of need, but out of freedom. Your actions become gifts rather than bargains. You become a presence of peace in a world driven by hunger. This is the gift of the Buddhist path to humanity, a way of living that is deeply engaged yet free of bondage. In the end, freedom beyond desire is the key to happiness because it aligns us with the truth of existence. Desire tries to resist impermanence, to demand permanence where none exists. But when we release desire, we flow with impermanence. We stop fighting life and begin to dance with it. This dance is joy, effortless and natural. Nothing is missing, nothing is lacking. Happiness is no longer a distant goal, but the very nature of the present moment when it is free of clinging. This is the invitation of the Buddhist secret, to step beyond desire and discover the happiness that was always within you, waiting in the stillness of your own heart. The journey is not easy, but it is the most worthwhile journey a human can take. Each step toward freedom is a step into peace. Each act of letting go is an act of awakening. And the destination is not far away. It is here, in this very breath, if only we release our grasp. If these words resonate with you, if you feel the call to live more freely, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Together, we can continue walking this path, exploring these truths, and supporting each other in the practice of freedom. Each teaching is a light on the way, and by staying connected, you nurture that light within yourself. Subscribe, and let us continue this journey of awakening together. The illusion of control. The human mind is endlessly restless because it clings to the illusion of control. From the moment we wake in the morning until we close our eyes at night, we make plans, set goals, worry about outcomes, and construct scenarios in our imagination. Beneath all this activity lies a deep, unspoken conviction. If only we control enough variables, if only we hold tightly enough to circumstances, if only we bend reality to our will, then happiness will be secure. This illusion of control fuels countless efforts, anxieties, and disappointments. It keeps us chained to suffering because no matter how much control we exert, the world refuses to obey our demands. The Buddhist path unmasks this illusion and reveals a different truth, that freedom and happiness are found not in control, but in surrender. The desire to control arises from fear, fear of loss, fear of uncertainty, fear of pain. To cope with this fear, the mind seeks to predict and manage everything. It clings to plans, expectations, and rigid ideas of how life must unfold. Yet reality is vast, fluid, and uncontrollable. The body ages despite our efforts. Loved ones change, grow distant, or die. Plans collapse under circumstances we could never have foreseen. Economic systems shift, climates alter, accidents happen. Each moment carries within it countless variables beyond our power. The tighter we cling to control, the more fragile our peace becomes, for it depends on holding back a river with our bare hands. The illusion of control shows itself most clearly in our relationships. We often try, subtly or openly, to shape others according to our desires. A partner must love us in a certain way. A child must grow into the image we hold. A friend must remain forever loyal. But people are not objects to be molded. They are living beings with their own paths. When they fail to conform, we feel betrayed, not because of what they did, but because we clung to control. True love requires letting go of this illusion. To love is to give freedom, not to impose chains. To love is to embrace the impermanence of others, knowing that they too are subject to change. Only when we stop controlling do we begin to see people as they truly are. We also cling to control in our inner world. We try to control emotions, forcing ourselves not to feel anger, sadness, or fear. Or we attempt to control thoughts, demanding constant positivity. But the mind resists. Thoughts arise, emotions surge, and our attempts to control them often strengthen their grip. The more we try to suppress anger, the more it burns underground. The more we fight sadness, the heavier it becomes. The Buddhist practice offers a different approach, not control, but awareness. To sit quietly and observe emotions as passing phenomena without clinging or resisting is to see that they are like weather, arising, changing, dissolving. When you stop trying to control them, they lose their power. Peace is found not by erasing emotions, but by letting them flow naturally, like clouds across the sky. This truth is reflected in meditation itself. Beginners often try to control the mind, forcing it to be still. They struggle, becoming frustrated as thoughts continue to arise. But the essence of meditation is not control, it is surrender. You sit, you breathe, you notice what arises, and you let it pass. Thoughts come, you acknowledge them, and you return to the breath. In time, the mind naturally settles, like muddy water becoming clear when left undisturbed. This clarity is not the product of control, but of letting go. The very attempt to control creates agitation, while surrender opens the door to peace. The illusion of control also shapes our relationship with the future. We construct plans and expectations, believing that if we map everything carefully, we will secure happiness. Yet the future rarely unfolds as imagined. Life brings surprises, both painful and beautiful, and often what appears as a misfortune becomes a hidden blessing. How many times have we looked back on events that once seemed disastrous, only to realize later that they opened the door to growth, wisdom, or unexpected opportunities? The obsession with control blinds us to this deeper flow of life. When we release control, we begin to trust that life, with all its unpredictability, carries wisdom greater than our plans. One of the greatest sources of suffering is the refusal to accept uncertainty. We crave certainty like a drug, wanting guarantees in love, in health, in career, in destiny, but certainty does not exist. Life is change itself. To seek certainty is to resist reality, and resistance is pain. The Buddhist path invites us to embrace uncertainty not as an enemy, but as the very nature of existence. When we accept uncertainty, we stop clinging to control. We begin to live fully in the present, responding to life as it is, rather than as we demand it to be. This acceptance brings an unexpected peace, the peace of being at home in the unknown. Freedom from the illusion of control is not passivity. It does not mean abandoning responsibility or ceasing to act wisely. It means recognizing the limits of control and acting from a place of openness rather than fear. You can still plan, but you hold plans lightly, ready to adapt when life shifts. You can still work for success, but you are not destroyed when outcomes differ. You can still care deeply, but you do not chain your peace to things beyond your power. This is the middle way, neither clinging to rigid control nor collapsing into helplessness, but walking with wisdom and flexibility. The practice of releasing control transforms even how we approach death. Death is the ultimate reminder that control is an illusion. No matter how much we try to secure life, it will end. But when you have practiced letting go in small things, you are prepared to let go in the great moment. You accept death not as a failure of control, but as the natural unfolding of existence. This acceptance frees you from fear and allows you to live more fully now. Each moment becomes precious because you are no longer trying to make it permanent. To live without the illusion of control is to rediscover wonder. When you stop demanding that life conform to your plans, you begin to see the beauty of what is. A flower blooming, a child laughing, a stranger's kindness, all appear as gifts, not entitlements. You marvel at life as it unfolds, unbidden, unpredictable, alive. This wonder is the seed of joy. It blossoms not from control, but from openness. The mind that releases control discovers that life itself is enough. In practical terms, the path away from control involves constant awareness. Each time you notice yourself clinging, trying to force someone, resist an outcome, or demand certainty, you pause, breathe, and soften your grip. You remind yourself, this too will change, this too is beyond me. Gradually, this practice becomes a way of life. You become more patient with others, more compassionate with yourself, more resilient in the face of change. Challenges still come, but they do not crush you. You bend like bamboo in the wind, returning always to your center. There is a story told of a monk who carried a heavy bucket of water each day from the river to the temple. One day, the bucket cracked and half the water leaked out. The monk tried to repair it, clinging to the idea of perfection. But after a while, he noticed flowers blooming along the path where the water spilled. The crack had created beauty he had not planned. In that moment, he realized that control was not necessary. Life's imperfections carried their own gifts. To let go of control is to see the flowers along the path, the blessings hidden in the cracks. Ultimately, the illusion of control is a form of attachment, the attachment to being the master of life. To release it is to discover humility, the recognition that we are part of a vast, interdependent universe. We are not the center, but neither are we insignificant. We are waves in the ocean, rising and falling, inseparable from the whole. When we release control, we fall back into this ocean, trusting its flow. This trust is the essence of faith, not blind belief, but confidence in the nature of reality. The Buddhist secret of happiness is revealed here once more. Happiness does not arise from forcing life to meet our demands, but from aligning with life as it is. To let go of control is to stop fighting reality and to begin flowing with it. This flow is peace. This flow is joy. This flow is freedom. The chains of control dissolve, and you discover that you were never separate, never powerless, never lacking. You were simply clinging to an illusion. If these words touch your heart and you wish to continue this journey of uncovering the illusions that bind us, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Each teaching is a doorway into deeper freedom, each reflection a step away from suffering. By subscribing, you walk with others on this path of awakening, learning not to control life, but to live it fully. Stay with us, and together we will continue to explore the profound wisdom that shows us how to be free. The joy of impermanence, the final step on this journey into the Buddhist secret of happiness, brings us to the heart of impermanence. Of all the truths the Buddha taught, impermanence, anicca, is the most simple and yet the most difficult to embrace. Everything that arises will pass away. Every breath, every thought, every experience, every relationship, every life is subject to change. To the ordinary mind, this truth seems tragic, even cruel, because it threatens all the things we wish to hold on to. We want love to last forever, youth to endure, success to remain, and pleasure never to fade. But life does not work that way. And so long as we resist impermanence, we live in conflict with reality itself. The miracle of Buddhist wisdom is that when we stop resisting and learn to embrace impermanence, we find not despair, but joy. The joy of impermanence is not a shallow pleasure, but a profound liberation that frees us to live fully, love deeply, and let go gracefully. Impermanence is not merely an idea, it is the very fabric of existence. Look around. The trees are shedding leaves, the seasons are shifting, the body is aging, the mind is thinking new thoughts in every instant. Nothing stays still. The river of time carries everything forward. This is not a curse, but a gift. Imagine if nothing changed. Life would be frozen, static, lifeless. Growth would be impossible, renewal would never happen, and suffering itself would never end. Impermanence is what makes transformation possible, because everything changes. Pain can heal, ignorance can become wisdom, hatred can turn to compassion. Impermanence is the ground of hope, not despair. And yet, our attachments blind us to this truth. We cling to what we love, demanding it stay as it is. We cling to our youth, resisting the wrinkles on our skin. We cling to identities, insisting we must always be who we once were. We cling to possessions, fearing their loss. Each act of clinging sets us up for suffering, because the world will not obey our demand for permanence. The flower will wilt, the house will crumble, the body will die. To cling is to fight an unwinnable battle against the nature of reality. No wonder we are restless, but the moment we release this demand and accept impermanence as the essence of life, everything changes. We are no longer fighting the flow of the river. We are floating with it, dancing with it, celebrating it. This shift of perspective transforms how we see beauty. A flower is beautiful precisely because it does not last. Its fragility makes it precious. A sunset moves us because it fades. A moment of joy with a friend touches us deeply because it cannot be repeated in exactly the same way. If everything lasted forever, nothing would be sacred, nothing would be cherished. Impermanence gives life its intensity, its urgency, its meaning. When we accept this, we stop grasping and we begin to appreciate more deeply. Each moment becomes luminous, unique, unrepeatable. We savor life, not in spite of impermanence, but because of it. The joy of impermanence also liberates us from regret. So much of human suffering comes from clinging to the past, replaying mistakes, wishing things had been different. But the past is gone. It cannot be held, cannot be changed. To cling to it is to suffer endlessly. When we embrace impermanence, we see that the past is like a dream that has already dissolved. Its only reality is in the lessons we carry forward. We release regret because we know that nothing was ever fixed, and everything has already passed. The same truth frees us from anxiety about the future. The future has not yet come. It is a projection of the mind. To cling to imagined outcomes is to suffer over illusions. When we release them, we rest in the only reality that exists, the present moment. Here now, life is unfolding. Here now, joy is possible. Meditation is a direct training in embracing impermanence. As you sit and breathe, you notice sensations arising and passing, thoughts arising and passing, emotions arising and passing. Nothing can be held. Each moment dies into the next. At first, this can feel unsettling, but as awareness deepens, it becomes liberating. You realize that you are not bound to any particular thought or emotion. They come, they go, and you remain. The observer, the awareness itself, is spacious and free. In this spaciousness, impermanence becomes a source of peace rather than fear. You see that clinging is unnecessary. The mind relaxes, the heart opens, and joy arises naturally. This joy extends even to suffering. Pain, too, is impermanent. No matter how intense, it will change. No sorrow lasts forever, no grief remains unchanged. Knowing this, we can bear difficulties with patience and courage. We can hold suffering lightly, trusting that it will pass. This is not to deny pain, but to contextualize it within the truth of impermanence. We suffer doubly when we believe pain is permanent, when we cling to the identity of being broken. But when we see that pain is a wave passing through the ocean of our life, we are no longer crushed by it. We ride it, we endure it, and we let it pass. In its passing, we discover resilience, strength, and compassion. Impermanence also transforms how we love. Ordinary love is often filled with fear, the fear of loss. We cling to those we love, terrified that they will leave or die. This fear poisons love, turning it into control. But when we accept impermanence, we love more deeply, not less. We know that every moment with those we love is precious, and so we are fully present. We do not waste time in petty arguments or resentments, because we know time is short. We forgive more easily, we appreciate more fully, we give more generously. To love with the awareness of impermanence is to love purely, without clinging. It is to embrace each moment of connection as a miracle. The joy of impermanence also invites us to live with courage. Many people delay living, waiting for a perfect moment, a secure future, a guarantee that never arrives. But impermanence means that life is always slipping through our fingers. To wait is to lose. The only moment we ever have is now. When we embrace impermanence, we stop postponing life. We take risks, we follow dreams, we speak the truth, we live authentically, because we know tomorrow is not promised. This courage does not come from recklessness, but from clarity. The clarity that clinging to permanence is futile, and that freedom lies in embracing change. At the deepest level, impermanence reveals the emptiness of the self. The I we cling to is not fixed, but a process constantly changing. Body, thoughts, emotions, memories, all in flux. There is no solid self to defend, no permanent ego to cling to. This realization can feel disorienting at first, but ultimately it is liberating. If the self is impermanent, then we are not trapped by past mistakes or fixed identities. We are free to grow, to change, to awaken. The self is not a prison, but a flow. To embrace impermanence is to realize our own fluidity, our own boundless potential. Impermanence is also the root of compassion. When we see that everything we love is fragile and transient, our hearts soften. We become kinder to others because we know they too are subject to loss, change, and death. We treat people gently because we realize how precious each encounter is. We become more patient, more forgiving, more present. Compassion flows naturally when we embrace impermanence because we see the shared fragility of all beings. We are all waves in the same ocean, rising and falling, appearing and disappearing. This shared impermanence unites us in a web of tenderness. The joy of impermanence also heals our relationship with death. Death is perhaps the greatest fear of all because it represents the ultimate impermanence. Yet Buddhism teaches that death is not an enemy but a natural part of the flow of life. To resist it is to suffer, to accept it is to be free. When we live with the awareness of death, we cherish life more deeply. We stop wasting time, we stop clinging to trivial things, and we focus on what truly matters. Love, compassion, wisdom. Death becomes a teacher, reminding us of the value of each moment. In this way, the awareness of impermanence does not make life bleak, it makes it radiant. To embrace impermanence fully is to discover a joy that cannot be shaken. This joy does not depend on things lasting, but on the freedom of letting them pass. It is the joy of living lightly, without clinging, without fear. It is the joy of tasting life as it is, moment by moment, without demanding it be otherwise. It is the joy of seeing beauty in change, meaning in fragility, and peace in release. This is the Buddhist secret of happiness, not to escape impermanence, but to celebrate it. The practice of embracing impermanence can be woven into daily life in countless ways. When you wake, remember that this day will never come again, and so live it fully. When you speak with someone, remember that this conversation is unique, and so be present. When you face difficulties, remember that they too will pass, and so endure with patience. When you feel joy, remember that it is fleeting, and so savor it without clinging. In this way, every moment becomes a teacher, every breath a reminder of the gift of impermanence. Ultimately, the joy of impermanence is the joy of liberation. When you stop demanding that life be permanent, you stop suffering, you open to the flow, you trust the process, you celebrate the dance of change. Happiness ceases to be a fragile state that depends on conditions and becomes the natural expression of a free heart. This joy is indestructible because it is rooted not in what changes, but in the acceptance of change itself. If this reflection has touched something within you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Together, we will continue to explore these timeless truths, supporting each other in learning to let go, to embrace impermanence, and to discover the joy that lies beyond attachment. Subscribe now, and let us walk this path of awakening step by step, breath by breath, into the freedom of a life fully lived.